In 1945, the British Empire stood victorious. Its flag flew over nearly a quarter of the planet. Its navy ruled the seas. Its enemies were defeated. And yet, quietly, invisibly, Britain was already finished. Not because it lost a war, not because it was invaded, but because it was bankrupt. This is the story of how debt, not armies, ended British rule. At the dawn of the 20th century, the British Empire was the most powerful system humanity had ever seen. It controlled India, much of Africa, the Middle East, strategic ports across Asia, global trade routes, the world's financial center. London was not just a capital, it was the clearinghouse of the world. British ships moved goods, British banks moved money, British law governed contracts. To most observers, this empire looked permanent. But empires do not collapse from the outside, they collapse from the inside, and Britain's weakness was hidden in plain sight. World War I did something unprecedented. It turned industrial warfare into a financial black hole. Britain did not just spend money fighting the war, it borrowed heavily from domestic investors, colonial revenues, and increasingly from the United States. By 1918, Britain had won the war, but victory came with a bill so large it changed everything. The empire was no longer a creditor, it was a debtor, and debt changes behavior. After World War I, Britain still looked powerful. It gained new territories through mandates, it redrew maps, it dictated treaties, but these were administrative victories, not financial ones. Behind the scenes, gold reserves were drained, debt repayments consumed budgets. Maintaining the empire became more expensive than extracting value from it. Colonies were supposed to generate profit. Instead, they became liabilities. Railways needed maintenance, administrations needed funding, security needed troops. The empire was now running on credit. If World War I wounded Britain financially, World War II finished the job. Britain fought bravely, it resisted invasion, it survived, but survival came at a cost. By 1945, Britain had sold overseas assets, emptied its gold reserves, and borrowed massively from the U.S. The famous Lend-Lease program was not charity, it was a financial transformation. When the war ended, Britain owed the United States billions. In 1946, Britain negotiated one of the most humiliating agreements in its history, a loan from the United States. The conditions were devastating. Britain had to open its markets, abandon imperial trade preferences, and make its currency convertible. This destroyed the economic logic of empire. Colonies were no longer protected markets, they were competitors. The empire could not survive in a system it no longer controlled. Britain still had troops, still had bases, still had weapons, but soldiers cannot fight arithmetic. Each colony now represented administrative cost, military expense, political risk. Debt forced decisions that guns never could. India became independent not because Britain was defeated militarily, but because Britain could no longer afford to rule it. The same pattern repeated across Asia, Africa, the Middle East. Withdrawal was cheaper than control. In 1956, Britain tried one last time to act like an empire, the Suez Crisis. Britain and France moved militarily to secure a critical route. Militarily, the operation worked. Financially, it was catastrophic. The United States threatened Britain's currency, and Britain collapsed instantly. No invasion, no battle, no defeat, just financial pressure. That moment proved something irreversible. Britain could no longer act independently. The empire was dead.
Britain did not lose its empire in battle. It liquidated it, territory by territory, base by base, contract by contract. Debt had done what no enemy could. It made empire mathematically impossible. The world didn't change overnight, but the center of power shifted from London to Washington, from colonies to systems, from flags to finance. Britain's fall marked the end of old empire, but not the end of control. Power moved into financial institutions, currency systems, trade frameworks. Debt did not disappear. It became the new weapon. And the world learned a lesson Britain had paid for. You don't need armies to rule. You need leverage. The British Empire did not fall in flames. It faded in spreadsheets. Its collapse was not dramatic. It was procedural. And that is why most people miss it. Because history teaches wars, but the world is shaped by balance sheets. Empires don't fall when they're defeated. They fall when they can no longer afford to exist. If you want to understand modern power, stop asking who has the biggest army. Ask who holds the debt.